Sylvia, I'm getting a divorce.
What?
I've tried to make it work, really, I have. I'm too miserable to go on any longer like this.
Have you ever wondered what happens behind the polished facade of a perfect marriage? Not the Instagram-worthy snapshots, but the truth behind the doors, when the guests leave and the silence grows louder. If you're a woman in your 40s or 50s, trying to find your place again after a long-term relationship, this story might just stir something deep inside you. In the 1954 film Woman's World, 3 couples are brought to New York as one man is being considered for a top job. But the twist is, it's not just his resume being judged, it's his wife, her style, her grace, her behavior, her ability to support. And behind all the glamour and decorum of 1950s fashion and champagne-drenched evenings is a quietly burning question. How much of a woman's identity gets wrapped around a man's success? We see one woman feel invisible next to her overly ambitious husband, another put on a show of charm while her marriage barely holds together behind closed doors, and one, sweet, sincere, maybe a bit clumsy, who reminds us of something we rarely see anymore: honesty. This story may be 70 years old, but the echoes ring clear today, because many of us, after 15 or 20 years in a marriage, wake up one day wondering, who am I now that I'm no longer someone's wife? Let's talk about what this movie reveals about our own journeys. It reminds us how women were conditioned to be perfect hostesses, the supportive shadow behind a man's rising star. And in many ways, that old conditioning still lingers. You may have given up your dreams, adjusted your voice to keep the peace, or learned to anticipate his needs before your own. But what happens when that role is gone? It can feel like standing on a stage after the play has ended, lights dimming, audience gone, and suddenly, you don't know who you were without the script. That's why this story is so powerful for women starting over. It's not about going back, it's about rewriting the role completely. Maybe you've spent decades caring for others, being the emotional anchor, and now, finally, it's time to anchor yourself. Maybe you've been conditioned to believe your worth was tied to someone else's approval. But now, you get to choose what makes you proud. And maybe, like the character in Woman's World, who was dismissed for not being polished enough, you felt not enough in someone else's eyes. But what if that honesty, that softness, is your actual strength? And while so much has changed since the 1950s, the clothes, the careers, the conversations, we still carry traces of that era in our bones. Back then, a woman's success was measured in how well she kept a home, how quietly she supported her husband, and how gracefully she faded into the background when his name was called. Even in the 60s and 70s, as the world shifted and women marched for rights and independence, many still went home to marriages that asked them to shrink, to smooth over, to stay. Today, women can lead companies, raise children alone, and own their choices. But emotionally, especially in relationships, the expectations often whisper the same message. Be agreeable, be supportive, don't be too much. And so, even now, many women in their 40s or 50s look around after a breakup or divorce and realize they spent decades trying to live up to someone else's version of enough. But now there's freedom in not having to perform, in no longer needing to keep the peace at the cost of your own, in discovering what you want, not what was expected of you. This isn't just about healing, it's about revolution. A quiet one, the kind that starts when a woman stands in her living room, looks in the mirror, and says, "I matter." Not because of who I'm married to, but because I'm still here, and I'm finally ready to live for me.